Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and transformational life coach and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Welcome back to the Life with Grief podcast, you guys. I am so excited to welcome today's guest. Today, we're chatting with Rebecca Feinglos, who is the founder of Grieve Leave and host of the Griefed Up podcast, which I myself will actually be a guest on. More on that to come. Stay tuned. But today, we're going to focus on our amazing conversation here on Life with Grief, because if you know Rebecca, you know how powerful and absolutely hilarious this conversation is going to be. Yes, even though we are talking about death and loss, we have so many laughs here. Her energy is absolutely contagious. I am just so excited to share this episode with you guys. And when we first met, we bonded over so many crazy synchronicities, from coping with relationships that have ended to both having Bichon Frises that we love more than anything. But first and foremost, we unfortunately have bonded over the fact that we have both lost our parents. And in this episode, we chat all about navigating these massive losses, but also navigating major life changes and finding solace in unexpected places, such as Duke Sports in Rebecca's case. She is a diehard, you guys. And here in this episode, Rebecca shares her deeply personal journey of grief, from her mother's battle with glioblastoma to her father's sudden death at the onset of COVID-19, and the subsequent shifts in her life, including ending her marriage and leaving her job, through some of the best humor you will hear all day to extremely touching and heartfelt moments. Rebecca shares her journey of founding Grieve Leave and the importance of building a grief support community, which I'm all about here, as you know, if you've been listening for a little while. And we also touch on the significance of finding quiet moments to help us along in our healing journey, getting in touch with ourselves and how important this is, and the ultimate journey towards self-discovery in the wake of such immense loss. I am so honored to share her story and perspective with you here today, so let's dig into it. Rebecca, welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. You're so cute. So you're like,
oh my God, stop.
I'm gonna interrupt myself.
No, I'm excited.
Everybody needs to watch the video version of this, because literally she's like the cutest human ever. But I was gonna say, welcome to the Life with Grief podcast.
Hi, Tara. I'm so pumped for our conversation. I
know.
feel like I've just been like your friend from afar on the
I
like
know.
internet friends are the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah,
you know,
good old Instagram. It's how I
love
connected with a lot of my guests here, and I feel like there's a reason for it. There is a reason, I feel like, divine or otherwise, that our paths cross. And what's really unique about you, this can kind of say unique about both of us, because I just don't hear it a lot, is we have endured, are enduring as we speak, the loss of two parents. I'm just gonna give a little bit of a spoiler for your story, but it's your story. I want you to share it. But I think
it's
that's
no
one of
secret.
the,
Don't worry.
yeah, right. But it's like one of the things that just connected me to you immediately. I just really resonated with your story, because I was like, I don't quite know your age, and I don't need you to reveal it, but I will say,
Tara, I'm 35 and so proud.
I
love being 35 and proud. I can run for president. It's great.
It's girl. Yeah. So us in our low to mid 30s, without both parents. And it's not unheard of, but I don't see it often. I don't really have anybody who's lost both. Maybe they've lost one in my own friend group and things like that. Sure. And it's a very, to say the absolute least, it's a very difficult thing for people, especially I think in our age, to be able to relate to have to navigate. But you've also been through some other things as well, and some things that are not necessarily a death, like in the traditional sense, perhaps secondary losses, but regardless, major life changes, let's say, that completely changed the trajectory of your life in many ways. So I want to open it up to you. I would love for you to I just want everyone to get to know you today, hear your story, how you are navigating your grief, all the things. But I love to start off by just asking you, like, who are you? What do you like to do for fun? What are your hobbies? What do people need to know about you? And then we will get into the griefy the griefy stuff.
Oh my God, love. Pause. I looked back in our DMs and my first DM to you was, did we just become best
You
friends?
did
That
say
is
that. I remember this.
that is what I said
Are we
because
trauma bonded already?
are we besties? Because I'm a normal human when I interact with people on the internet and I just assume friendship. So glad that that is reciprocal.
Yeah.
Because that it could be I could be a lot, Tara.
Girl, bring it on. I'm here for it.
So oh my gosh, about me. Well, I'm Rebecca Feinglos. I am a born and raised Southerner, but we were talking before
Yeah.
we started this that I actually had Northern parents. So it's funny because I think I have some Southern warmth but a lot of like northern directness and snark. So
What a combination.
it just makes me like actually I think de facto it makes me Midwestern. Like I think I just even out
Just some
and like
happy medium.
yeah, when I lived in Chicago, I just really felt at home. I was there for grad school and I was like, oh, Canada plus New York plus North Carolina equals Chicago. Like it just like those ingredients make up my personality. It's lovely.
Oh my God.
I can tell you all about my family, who my parents were. But I think I just have to tell you that I love in my spare time, I love all things Duke University. I love all things
Girl, go for it.
Duke basketball. I love all things Duke sports.
Yeah.
Duke is literally, even though I'm in Montreal right now, where I split my time, my brother is having a baby. I'm about to be auntie slash de facto grandma on our side of the family because there is no one else. So I am getting more in touch with my northern genes these days, but my home base is Durham, North Carolina. I live across the street from Duke.
You really? Oh, that's
Girl.
wild.
Oh my God. Come anytime for a basketball game. Come anytime for a football game. Like that was my happy place growing up when a lot of shit was going down at home. And like Duke basketball games were the consistently beautiful, fun place to go where there were always the same cheers. We would always win because we're great.
Because Duke.
Because Duke, football games were a little bit different. You know, we didn't win those.
We don't need to go down that road.
We know it's okay. It's better now. But that I think that's important to know about me. Is like I'm a big Duke sports girly.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of my time like thinking about Duke sports and attending Duke sporting events, which is I feel very lucky, very privileged. But I'm also hyper aware that a lot of people hate Duke sports, and that's okay. It's all right. It just is a part of who I am, and it has a really special place.
But I was gonna say, it sounds like it goes deeper for you, and like how amazing is it? And I empathize with that in my own way, just needing that just that one spark of joy, that one bit of consistency, that one thing that has just always been like kind of a core for you. And that is so important, like to bring this back to grief for a second, when we're grieving, when, you know, like literally wherever we can get it. Bring it on. Yeah.
Like Duke's Cameron Indoor Stadium was my third space, right? Like it wasn't school, it wasn't home, but it was this consistent place during basketball season that I knew I could go and like have a wonderful time. My dad and I and my mom, when she was still well enough, could go. Yeah. My brother always hated Duke basketball games. He would fall asleep like on purpose out of spite. He just didn't want to, he's not a sporty guy, but I loved it. And so it's like for me, cheering for Duke is actually this beautiful way to connect deeply with my parents who were, my dad was a physician at Duke for 50 years and my mom ran the medical center library. Yeah. So
okay. This
and
is
I am like an alum. Yeah. It runs really deep for us.
Yeah, it does. Can we also talk about your dogs?
Have we heard them barking in the background?
No, I haven't heard anything. But the reason I bring them up is because this is another reason I connected with you, because it is the same type of dog that I had. They're Bichons, right?
I almost want to like go get them, but the fact that they're quiet right now is like remarkable to me. Yeah, no, so I like don't want to jinx it. Daisy Duke and Ralphie are literally angels, except when they're not. Yeah. And I love them so much. Daisy Duke is 12, just a floof. And Ralphie is 9. He's a Bichon Poodle mix, so he's 50% smarter than Daisy. Don't tell her. love
they're
them.
so cute. But that was
Oh
like,
my
I
God,
was just like,
thank
okay, this
you.
girl is without parents. She is with dog that I had, kindred spirits. So when you sent me that DM, I was like, yes, ma'am.
We are in fact best friends.
We are.
Also, I love that you as like, young woman like me, I love that you're like, yeah, I had a Bichon because most people when they'll be like, oh my God, is that a Bichon? And I'll be like, oh, do you have one? And they'll be like, no, my grandparents did. And I'm like, thank you. It's like a lot of old
Just
people
like,
have
wow, okay, I'm
Bichons.
actually 85. This is
They're
fantastic.
very cuddly
They
breed. That's
are. Well,
why.
half the reason we got her was because this is wow, we're just completely going off the rails here, but I'm here for it.
No, this is about grief. It's fine.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I lost my dog. There is dog loss on this
There you go.
podcast as well.
There you
Okay.
go. There you go.
Um, but we got her mostly because I'm allergic to dogs, so I needed something
Yeah.
hypoallergenic.
Yeah.
And she was cute and white and floofy, and like who wouldn't want her? And I named her Princess because I was 10 years old and I didn't know better at the time.
Angel girl. I love
She lived up
Princess
to the
the
name
Floof.
very well.
Princess
Yeah.
Floof. How old did she live till?
19.
Damn.
Yeah. So I am making
Damn.
that for your puppers too. Because
Holy
those Bichons,
cow.
I know, say what you will about Bichons, but
I love them.
those things can live.
They're
And they live
hilarious
well.
too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, love. Oh, yes. Daisy Duke and Ralphie,
So
pour one
cute.
out. Love them.
I had to bring them up.
I'm so
All right.
glad you did.
So, okay, so we have alluded to aspects of your story thus far. I would love for you to share truly, I love to just chalk it up to guess like whatever you're comfortable with. And I know our stories can seem or feel long, but truly like it's funny whenever I like get on here with guests, they're just like, okay, where do I even start? I'm like, you start where well, please. Tell me their names, tell me things about them. Whatever you're comfortable sharing as far as how they passed. I bring that up because, people here listening, if there is a particular way that they died or a disease or something like that. I mean, like people here, like they know my parents died of cancer and there we have that unfortunate connection and things like that. So yeah, just talk to me a little bit about that. But then also, again, I don't want to keep giving away your story,
Okay, you're
but
fine. Don't worry.
your any other type of losses that you would like to talk about.
Just the casual other loss that we will
Yes.
let's just leave that as a cliffhanger for a second. So let's start with my mom,
Yeah.
Susan. Two things that I have put around me in honor of my mom. This is a dress she made. It's really like fun. Maybe I can angle my camera down.
Oh my
You can't really
God.
see. It has like pockets. It's like so 70s and like it's just like a fun one.
I'm obsessed.
Um,
And it
I
accents the wall behind you absolutely perfectly.
I
Kind of
did not do this on purpose. I swear to God. My nails, listeners, are the
just,
same fucking color as my dress. And I put on this dress and I didn't even realize it until I was on camera with you, Tara. And I was like,
like,
oh,
oh, I sure did that.
this is a whole lot today. But here we are. So glad. And then this mug is, I chose my cow mug, which we were laughing at earlier, because my mom loved cows. And I was like, oh, let me just channel some Susan
Yeah.
Feinglos energy. Yeah, some Susan energy. My mom's name was Susan, like every other woman born around the late 40s, early 50s. There are so many Susans in
Oh,
my life.
there's a
Everyone is
few.
named Susan.
There's
And I'm
many.
like, geez, Louise. My mom was a badass.
Hmm.
She was a 5'10" with blue eyes and this like dark hair. And she was beautiful and
Funny.
brilliant. She studied library science and art at McGill. And I thought everyone had graduate degrees growing up because both of my parents had graduate degrees because they were
That's
both fucking
incredible.
brilliant. I just didn't understand that that wasn't, everyone. Like,
Right.
no, my parents were brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Oh.
Um, but my dad and my mom met studying at McGill. So my dad was from upstate New York. My mom was from Montreal, and they met their freshman year at McGill,
Oh.
which is so sweet. They got married at 22, like little babes. My dad graduated from medical school. She graduated with her graduate degree in library science, and they moved down to Durham, North Carolina, and dad started his residency at Duke in endocrinology. His focus was diabetes.
Okay.
And my mom eventually ran the Duke Medical Center Library, eventually, and they never left. And so they raised a family in beautiful Durham, North Carolina,
Oh,
which is a a wonderful place to grow up. I think that everything was going fine in our family. And then, you had two like powerhouse academic
Yeah.
achievers, helpers. And at the age of 45, my mom was diagnosed with glioblastoma, brain cancer, deadliest form of brain cancer.
Um,
And she and my dad had two little kids, me, I was 5, and
I
my
was gonna ask how
brother.
old you were. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, my brother was 7. Um, and a glioblastoma, for anyone who is listening, it is the deadliest form of brain cancer. It is a death sentence. And particularly at that time, the amount of time you would live with a glioblastoma is like a year, maybe. My mom lived for 8 years because she was a part of a lot of experimental treatments. As you can imagine, as they were a part of the medical center community at Duke.
Right.
So
Right.
my dad really micromanaged her care in a way that was both beautiful and created a household dynamic that was incredibly stressful all the time, as you can imagine, right? Like my dad, I never saw my dad happy. He was
In
incredibly
8 years,
stressed.
essentially.
Our childhood was not, it was fun, not a fun environment, Tara. It
Uh,
was my mom, anyone who has watched someone deteriorate slowly over time, particularly in something neurological, something in their brain, if that is Alzheimer's, if that is even substance use. I mean, if that is something significant, it is devastating to watch your person physically be there, but become mentally more and more absent over time. And put that within the context of her supposedly being a parent
mhm.
and being unable to parent. And it was not a fun 8 years. It was quite scary. Which is like, to take it back to Duke, which I try to do as much as possible, which is part of why I liked escaping from my house whenever I could, whether that was through basketball games or through school, and
Yeah.
being like everyone's friend and academic achiever. And I really relished in not being home.
Yeah.
My mom eventually died when I was 13, and she was in a nursing home at the time for the last couple of years of her life to get just more full-time care.
Mhm.
Um, and I think like the biggest thing that I want to share there related to this particular example of grief is that when my mom died, it was a big sense of relief for my family.
Thank you for saying that because
Yeah,
I feel, working in this space, that there is so much shame around saying
yeah,
something like that. It can feel
yeah,
so slimy. It can feel like we are betraying them, like we are, oh, thank God they're gone. It's not like a thank God they're gone. I don't want to take words out of your mouth. The way that because I felt just a little bit of that when my parents died, but it was out of, thank God they are out of the state that was not their happiest, their
yeah,
normal, their
yes,
healthiest. Like
period.
they
Yeah.
would not have even wanted to live that way. And in fact, my dad didn't. And I think that's why he died when he did, so closely after my mom. Like it just,
Mm.
anyway, thank you for saying that
You
because,
get it. You
yeah,
absolutely
there's a
get
lot
it.
of guilt that we can have around thinking those things, and that can feel very dark. It's very normal.
I think I felt that way for a really long time, that that was
Yeah.
like a very shameful thing to ever think.
Yeah.
And we just didn't talk about my mom when she died. I'm Jewish, and so there are very um, uh, straightforward Jewish traditions when it comes to death. We recognize death anniversaries every year at synagogues. We would do that. I wrote about my mom's death for like college essays. Like I overcame this hard thing,
Look at me.
and look at me. But otherwise, we didn't talk about that.
Wow.
And I think part of that, like looking back, was absolutely shame. It was like, oh, this awful dark time, this awful thing happened. her life was not really a life. She was unable to communicate. She couldn't carry on a conversation with you. Like that's not a life.
No.
And I think you go back, like put yourself in those shoes. If you are 45 years old and you have two young children, a doctor for a husband, of course, you're going to throw everything you have at that treatment and at that disease. You're going to try. But
Yeah.
holy fuck, like I wouldn't wish those 8 years on anyone
Yeah.
ever. Not on her, not on our family. So it's like knowing everything that we know now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So her death actually kind of colored my entire life in ways I didn't recognize because I was the achiever. I was like the good kid and was very successful, which I hustled really hard for. Graduated from Duke, graduated from the University of Chicago, got married somewhere in there, and
We'll get to
I
that.
I became a teacher and then started working in policy and government and focused particularly on early childhood and education policy. Things were going great, ostensibly.
Right.
And
That's
I was part of this like power couple and I moved back to North Carolina. I just worked for the mayor of Chicago. I moved back to North Carolina to take on my dream job of running early childhood policy for the state of North Carolina.
Incredible.
And on day one of COVID lockdown, I got a phone call from basically the governor's team being like, hey, can you come in? It's Saturday morning. Can you come in? Like this COVID thing is big. We're going to shut down schools across North Carolina and you have a background in education and we want you to come in. I call my dad on the way in as I am going to the secure location in like downtown Raleigh. And I'm like, Dad, guess what I'm doing right now? Isn't this crazy? And he was like, that is insane. I'm so proud of you. I love you. He sounded a little short of breath, which I thought was odd. And then I was like, okay, well, check in with you later. Love you. Bye. And he was like, love you. And then 2 hours later, I'm in this secure basement and I had like 5 missed calls from the same number. My dad remarried. It was from her.
Okay.
And I it's funny because I had texted her being like, hey, I'm busy right now. Can I call you? I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back? And she was like, no, call me.
Yeah,
And
in fact, no.
in fact, this cannot wait. Call me now.
A global pandemic.
Yeah, I was like, what could be more important than the chaos of the pandemic and me? I am doing really fucking important work right now. Okay,
How dare you?
How dare you? And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, the worst thing that could have happened is dad could be in the hospital. Like something awful must have happened to dad. Let me call her and see what's going on. So I stepped out in the hallway and I told everyone, I was like, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm so sorry, but your daddy's gone. Or your daddy's dead. Now I can't remember if she said gone or dead.
No, right. It's like we black out these like weird things, but
But like it didn't compute.
What?
Like I didn't understand the words. And I just kind of collapsed in the hallway. I'm with like top government folks in North Carolina who are about to go on like live television. They're comforting me. Like I somehow say the words out loud, like my dad's dead. It was insane. It was insane.
Oh my
To kind of fast forward a little bit, obviously I took some time off of work. We had to do an autopsy on him to figure out what the hell happened. He died of 2 pulmonary emboli, 1 in each lung. So those are blood clots.
Yeah.
And the question was whether he had died of COVID first. That was question 1.
Sure.
Because we didn't know what COVID like was really. And he was a physician. He was rounding with patients that week. So if he had had COVID and then died and had given it to his patients, like that would have been like a public health crisis. So got him tested for COVID post-mortem after he died and he tested negative. So maybe he had been traveling a few weeks earlier, maybe he had gotten clots in his legs from sitting on a plane and traveled up, and that's why he was short of breath as those blood clots were breaking
Yeah.
up.
Oh my God,
He had a
mm,
it's crazy. And so that could not have been a more different parental death experience than my mom's,
yeah. Oh my,
because it came out of nowhere and there were no rituals because it's the middle of COVID.
yeah.
So we couldn't have a funeral for him. It wasn't the middle of COVID. It was day one of COVID.
I was gonna ask, so this is like what, February, March of 2020?
March 14th,
March.
2020, day one of COVID lockdown in most states. And so, like, we were the first funeral at the funeral home in COVID times. This was before masking was a thing. People didn't know it was airborne.
If you are ready to change your life and level up the way you're navigating your grieving experience in a big way, listen up because this is for you. My Life with Grief membership is designed to help you heal, cope, elevate your soul, and navigate life after suffering a loss. I wanted this membership to help you cope with your grief, of course, but we go beyond that here because with life there is grief and there are so many complexities and layers to this process. And it's a lifelong thing, which I think is such an important thing to recognize. That's where this community, me as your coach, and this membership come in to guide you, support you, and lift you up. This is an all in one membership program for personal growth, well being, community, and healing from loss from the inside out. We're digging into how to overcome the overwhelm and confusion of grief and tap into an intentional, meaningful life. And remember, it's not about getting over it and moving on. It's about growing around your grief and giving yourself grace as you move forward. It's acknowledging that your loss will always be with you, but you're doing so in a way that's easy to digest and is all about the baby steps, and in a way that isn't too daunting or too much too fast, alongside the perfect tools to help you. We're taking it a step at a time here, but in a way that is super impactful and will make a difference in your life. I hope you're ready for some perspective changing content to come your way because we are just getting started in this membership. I really hope to see you in the community with us. Tap the link in the show notes for more details.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
So
looking back on that too. Oh my God. Jesus. Yeah.
people who experienced a death during COVID, like whether or not it was due to COVID,
My dad's was July 2020. It was one of the heights of it. Yeah.
but like you get it. And anyone who is listening also knows we get this, like, lucky us, we get this double grief of like, fuck, our person is gone. And I'm actively, like, right now, even as I'm talking to you, I'm like angry. I'm still angry that we didn't get to grieve for my dad in the ways that he deserved
Absolutely.
right then.
Yeah.
Like, we should have had a huge fucking public funeral.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to do that. And that devastates me to this day. He deserved to be really honored. And I think, like, fast forward, I think some of that rage that I still feel really drives me now in building a grief support community, because I'm like, well, damn it, nothing will ever fill that void for me of not being able to grieve for my dad.
Yeah.
And yeah, other fast forward, nothing
Like switching gears.
well, nothing will tell you that your marriage isn't working than having a suddenly dead remaining parent in your life. Like, the last parent you had suddenly is dead, and you're in COVID lockdown with this person.
Can I just say, this is although my now husband, then boyfriend, had a different direction, obviously we got back together. Can I also just say, although my dad's death was not like instantaneous, we also broke up during COVID, had one remaining parent during COVID, died, all the things right in the middle of COVID. Just saying. So one more time, raise parallel here.
I
Crazy.
love that for us. And you also prove that, like, crises during like a partnership
Yeah.
are normal. Like, shit's gonna happen.
Yeah.
People are going to die. You're going to get a job. You're going to lose a job. Like
Yeah.
someone's going to get sick. Something is going to happen.
Hmm.
And it is in those moments that your relationship is tested. And either you grow together and you grow stronger for it, or you don't.
Yep.
And it doesn't work. And that is not like a moral failing. That is not it doesn't mean either of you is a terrible person. My
Right.
husband and I were not the right fit for each other.
Mm.
And that was true, especially true over time, but it became especially clear during lockdown and
Yeah.
after the deaths of actually all of our parents. He also had two dead parents in his household.
Wow.
Yeah, we connected for a lot of reasons and we did everything we could. I'm very proud of that marriage and I'm proud of the work that we both put in. And it was the right move to end it,
Yeah.
which comes with its own grief.
Mm-hmm.
So there I was at the end of 2021, and I was like, oh my God, I'm 31 years old. I have two dead parents. I'm trying really hard to get divorced in the state of North Carolina, which does not make it easy legally to do so. Shout out to anybody trying to get divorced in the Carolinas right now. You know, it is a mess. Um,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do any,
I can't life right now.
I can't life right
Just
now. I can't like
not in the way that you
continue on. No. I
have
mean, I had worked so fucking hard to get to the career point that I was at. I was leading our entire state's COVID response for
Rebecca, that's
schools.
incredible. That is no small feat. I mean, like, damn, lose all this important things, but I love that you are recognizing how amazing that is, and you can own that because you obviously worked your ass off to do that and to get, and you had such a pivotal and amazing role in that. So,
Thank you.
you know,
I'm
everything
damn
else could
proud.
be
Yeah.
crumbling around you, but you got that going for you.
Oh my God.
I
I mean,
say
I
that as
think,
laughing, joking, but I'm very serious.
yeah. No, it's like I feel so fulfilled by I've always been motivated by helping people in public service. Like that is the only thing that has ever motivated me in life and gold stars. But now but like ultimately it's about helping people and I got to do that and at the end of 2021 I was like, "Oh, I cannot do this anymore. I
Mm,
can't work this way. I can't live this way. I can't be." And I decided to quit my job, which was a devastating choice and also one that I just really fucking needed. And
yeah.
it was a privilege to do so,
Yeah.
to walk
Can you
away for
talk
a
to me
while.
a little bit about that? Just like, you don't have to go into
Yeah,
great detail because I don't want to
sure.
like pry per se, but like, just how did you, were you just feeling burnout? Were you just feeling like I have just the weight of the world on my shoulders with everything I have lost? Like, what was sort of, did you have sort of like a come to Jesus moment? Like, what was it
Mhm.
that, even if it not wasn't like a specific moment or it was just like over time, you're just feeling more and more fill in the blank. You know what I mean? Like, how'd you,
Well, you know what's so interesting is after my dad died, it like made me question everything that I was doing
oh
in
yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
Cause it was like, oh, I'm not a daughter.
Hmm.
I don't have to like prove myself to my dad, which he would have never ever wanted me to like not be well. Like
Right.
all he want, right? But like in my mind,
But you felt
I
that way still, like
yeah,
yeah.
I wanted to be a good daughter and I wanted to do good in this world
Mhm.
and I didn't want to cause any problems. I just really wanted to make him proud. And when he was gone,
Mhm.
my mentality shifted to be like, oh my God, there is absolutely no one left on this earth who is going to protect me except for me.
Louder for those in the freaking back.
It's
Oh my
true.
God. I
It's
no,
true.
it is so true. It is a feeling that I feel like you cannot totally understand unless you have lost both parents
Yeah.
or someone else, whatever, parental figure, other very close people in your circle. But even I think there's just something specifically about a parent loss.
Yeah.
It just I mean, it does a lot of things. It just shakes you to your absolute core. This compass you feel like you had, it is just like
Yeah.
patty bumpus. And it's just like,
But it's an important word to
okay,
that is
it's a
exactly
very
how it
important
felt.
word. It is
Yes.
the only word that can apply in that situation. And you're just so, it does make you question things. And it's interesting. I
Yeah.
have someone I'm coaching right now, and they're kind of going through the same thing. They were like, there were certain expectations that like her parents had for her. Um, and now that they're both gone, just kind of like, well, wait, do I need to like live up to that still? I'm still struggling with this because I've known nothing else for X amount of years. What do I really want versus what did they want for me? Like what was imposed on me, so to speak. And it's a very like you are just getting to know yourself again, or maybe
Yeah.
even for the first time. I don't know. Like
Yes.
I get how word that however you want, but I went through something similar. Yeah.
You totally get it.
Yeah.
You 100% get it. It is like a reset of what
Yes.
drives you and who you
Yes.
are. And like the you that you were before your parents are gone, were gone. I think this is true of any kind of big loss. The
Yeah.
you that you were before your big loss is
Mhm.
no longer the you
Yeah.
after that loss. And that doesn't mean you're like bad at loss.
Right.
It just like isn't possible. I
Yeah.
can literally never be the same. I can't think the same way.
Mhm.
I I have so many like Tara, like nothing will ever be urgent ever again because I know
Mm.
what it felt like when when I got that text. It was like, no, call me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is urgency.
Yes.
Dad being dead was urgent. And that is part of why I had to leave my job, is because I would get emails that were marked fucking urgent.
Mhm.
And I was so tired and frustrated by the end of that year that I was like,
Mm-mm.
I'm not the person that should be in this role right now because my whole sense of urgency is shifted in my entire life. Like I don't want to respond to that email. I
Mhm.
don't want to I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And that it just changes the way I wanted to work
Yeah.
and the way that I wanted to do. I still wanted to do good in the world. That
Mhm.
was still important to me and it always will be, but not in the ways that I was just like killing myself every day
You want to
professionally
do it
and then school.
on your terms. Like
Yeah.
I've very much gone through that shift myself in my own work. I'm still going through it because I still have other work that I do outside of everything I do with grief. And that balance is tough sometimes. I'm not gonna
Do
lie.
you sleep? You also have a 7-month-old, so I'm just like
I
reminding
don't
you.
actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just awake
That
24.
sounds
That's how I
like it's sustainable.
really healthy. Yeah, for me, right? I know. It's
Cool.
still coffee.
I was
And it's
gonna say, what's your caffeine source? Tell me more.
a little latte, and
Love.
I live for her. Yeah, and I just it no, but that's so true. That's so true. And the things that urgency is a great example of this, and like the things that people I hate to use the word complain, the things that people gripe about that just I'm not gonna say they don't matter, but they you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
things or you hear somebody griping about their parents or how annoying they're being, or literally just anything. It doesn't even have to be related to your loss. It's just like your perspective is forever shifted.
Yes.
And I love that you said that and touched on that. And I think that can be intimidating and scary to some people because I almost feel like they're like, "Oh my god, I'm never going to be the same, but I didn't want to change. I didn't
Yeah.
want things to change. I don't want
Yeah.
a perspective. I don't whatever." So this is and I
Tough nuggies,
yeah,
right? Like tough nuggies. That's fucking life, right? Like things are going to change and you have to change. And it sucks and it's not fair. And also, maybe this is like the most
I'm dying.
equally distributed thing on the planet. Like everyone will experience loss and grief.
Yeah.
Everyone has their tough nuggies moments. It will happen to you. If it hasn't happened to you yet,
Yeah.
listener, you're probably not even
Buckle the
listening to this
fuck up.
podcast, but you're probably not even listening, right? Like it's
Seriously.
everyone who's listening has already had plenty of tough nuggies moments. It sucks. And like none of us wanted to change. Here
No.
we are.
But here we are. It reminds me of Boy Meets World when Eric's like, "Life's tough, get a helmet."
I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't a Boy Meets World girly. I was a Full
What?
House
Okay, well,
girly
hopefully you at
because
least
of
know
the
that quote.
Full House had a dead mom. And I was like,
Do
perfect.
that. You're just like my people.
Yeah, no, I literally was like,
Oh, literally.
oh, I feel seen. This is great.
That is so fair.
It made me feel really good.
Healthy family unit was just like out the window for you.
Yeah, no, I don't want to watch fucking Boy Meets World. No, thank you. I need a dead parent. Yeah.
How dare they? No, it's so true. But okay, this is actually literally a perfect segue into, okay, so things have changed.
Yeah.
Perspectives are shifting, have to shift, must shift, whether we want them to or not. Whether we realize it or not, it
Yeah.
is. So I feel like sometimes a crossroads a lot of us gets to, whether it is an actual come to Jesus aha moment or it's more subtle, which I would say mine was more subtle personally. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, but
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, this isn't working. The things that were perhaps important to me or that mattered, or however you want to word it, to me previously, before loss and after loss, because I think that's how a lot of us kind of categorize our life in these chapters, if you will.
Totally.
What mattered before doesn't really now. I don't want this. I don't want to keep operating this way. I wasn't actually that happy. Like, yes, I wish my person was still here, but maybe my career wasn't actually as satisfying as I thought it was. Maybe this relationship isn't working the way that I thought it was. You know, it just sheds light on literally every nook and cranny of your life. So I think that's where a lot of people listening to this podcast too are kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? What do I do? What light at the end of the tunnel is there? What hope do I have? How the fuck do I navigate all of this in the short term, like in your face grief? And how do I do this long term? Because here we are sitting on this podcast and we can actually laugh. And we can, because we're, I don't want to speak for you, but generally speaking, I am doing well. And I am.
Yeah.
That is not to say we don't have our moments. That is not to say we don't have things that trip us up or trigger us or whatever. But, and I always want to preface this. I feel like on this podcast, I need to say, you know, because me and a lot of guests, we will laugh. We will joke. There might be some dark humor. There might be things. And depending on where people are in their grieving journey, they might be like, yeah, I'm joining in with you guys. Like, I feel this. And some might be like, it's way too raw for me right now. I'm too new to this. So I always say, you know, any conversations here, I guess I'll say take it with a grain of salt or like put it in the back of your head for later or whatever. But I would love for you to share just a little bit of how you formed Grieve Leave. Like, how did you make this shift? How have you found clearly such positivity? I mean, I'm more convinced now than ever that you are placed on this planet to serve in the way that you just said, like through public service and through all of these things. Genuinely, Rebecca, I say that so wholeheartedly. It emanates from you. And I love that I feel like, especially all of us who like are in this grief space, we might talk about a lot of the same things, but we all do it a little bit differently. And who might resonate with me might not resonate with you, and vice versa.
Yep.
But the point is, we can all come together and, like, no matter what we've gone through, no matter who we've lost, whatever, we can just be on the same wavelength as each other. We can be like, yeah, this is shit. And we could leave it at that almost if we really wanted to. And been like, I see you, but I see you. And you just have such a beautiful way with your content and everything that you put out there. It's like this perfect mix of like education, but your personality, you're very real and very raw. And I love that, because that's how I try and approach it too. You know what I mean? In my own way.
This is why we're best friends instantly.
For sure.
Obviously.
So how like, I was gonna say, how did you get here? Like,
what? How? Why?
How did you tap into that? Because I know that can feel like far away for some people, and it's not that we all have to like create freaking grief accounts and like be grief coaches and stuff. It's not even about that. It's just finding outlets and finding things that are healthy ways to cope with our grief. And in your case, you created something super fucking beautiful with it. So,
oh my God, thank you.
Enough of my rambling. I will hand it off to you.
Stop. Okay. First of all, you're not rambling. You're literally a perfect angel. So, I actually want to ask you a question though.
Please.
Do you get the question that I do all the damn time that is like, how do you stay like happy? Like you seem, no, it's this. You seem so normal. Like, why? How, how do you how do you stay normal?
Yeah.
How would you answer that question? And I'll tell you how I answer it.
Oh, that's a great question. I have done a lot of self-reflection, spending time by myself, getting to know me, the root of me, the core of me. And so I did that, I mentioned like my breakup previously. So that was like just before my dad died, but it still extended a little bit like after he had died. But I was never more alone in my entire life, never more lonely, never more, couldn't have people around me 24/7. I didn't want people around me 24/7. And that's not for everybody, but that was my path. I needed that alone time to read, to listen to podcasts, to figure out what inspired me, what made me feel better, what exercise resonated with me, what music resonated with me. I mean, literally anything you could think of, I was like rediscovering about myself. And I allowed myself to do that. And I got curious, I would say, about it all, about my grief, about life post loss, all of it. I'm still doing that to this day. But for me, I mean, like journaling was a big thing and just like, again, getting curious and just having that consistency. So having some consistency in whatever way I could still. Um, Writing was just a big one. I mean, that's how I started Losses Become Gains, was actually through a blog. And I didn't even envision it going to a podcast, let alone anything else. But that allowed me to, it was just very cathartic. And I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I released a lot. And then for me, and I feel like this is like kind of what resonates with you, it like came out almost in the form of education. And like one of my archetypes is I'm a visionary and I'm a teacher. Those are two things I tend to be good at. So, and that's kind of how Losses Become Gains like came to life. But it can, that can manifest in whatever way it does for everyone else. So, okay, so what was the question? Like, how am I
No,
normal?
that how are you normal? But you've described like at its core, you
Like
are normal because you are
the
yourself.
process.
Like
Yeah.
you got to figure out like who you are as
Yeah.
Tara. And
Yeah.
that took time and that took alone time and that took
Yes.
learning and that took
And
intentionality on your
work and
part.
energy. Yeah. And being so, I've just gotten to a point too, I'll just finish and then I will get back to you. Just being unapologetically myself. Because I could put out this podcast or I could talk about and people might judge me for this. Or they may be like, Jesus Christ, all she does is fucking talk about her parents. Like, move on. And I've had people say that to me, actually, which is the most disturbing part. Usually older generations, they're like, literally, stop talking about it. Like, you're making me uncomfortable. You're making me sad. You're this, you're that. I'm like, it's not my fault that you're uncomfortable with me. You don't have to follow me, actually. You can, crusty old lady, get off Facebook.
There's
Like,
plenty of other
oh my
content out
God.
there if you want to
Yeah.
avoid your own pain, right? Like that says more
Exactly.
about them
Don't,
and that they would take the time to comment that. I'm like, ooh,
yeah.
I'm curious about that person
Yeah,
now.
please. Oh, wait, actually, let's dig into your trauma then,
Tell
shall
me
we?
about you.
Like, ugh. But anyway, just yeah, just owning my shit, really. And just but
Yeah.
that's just it's a part of getting to know yourself. And I always just want to empower people to like that can be a painful process. I'm not saying it's like all rainbows and daisies and roses and shit, but it's also a very inspiring and a very empowering process if you allow it to happen. Hey, my friend, are you needing some relief from your grief? If so, I have an exciting new offering that will help you get exactly that. My 14-day Relief in Your Grief challenge brings you powerful, impactful, bite-sized daily content alongside the perfect meditation. One of the biggest struggles I hear from my members, clients, and people on social media is that they just need some relief from the stress, sadness, and pain that grief and loss can cause. But here's the thing, so many people are lost and unsure about where to start. This can feel like a huge thing to tackle, so we are doing it together and we're starting with just 14 days. Give me 2 weeks and I will help you begin to take that anxiety, heartache, and anguish and turn it into peace, clarity, and hope as you move forward with your grief. Seriously, what do you have to lose by joining? Challenge your grief and give yourself some relief, my friend. I have no doubt this 14 days will be an inspiring, uplifting, perspective changing experience for you. Join now through the link in the show description.
Oh my God. Everything you've said resonates because I would say the reason I seem normal now is because I stopped pretending like I was normal. And it's like I stopped spending every day of my life hustling to serve others at all times, doing my best to look perfect, having the perfect seeming marriage, posting the perfect stuff on social media, being the helping friend, being the friend that is always there for everyone else, being the person who, I mean, I still dress very well, obviously, but like caring so much about how I look and
Yeah.
how I was perceived.
Yes.
And over time, and particularly like at the end of 2021, when I decided to leave my job,
Yeah.
is I was like, I need to figure out what is a sustainable way for me to live this life. And I have a feeling that that will come from being really honest with myself about my life and the feelings that I have around fucking grief and loss that I never surfaced. And it really wasn't until my dad died that I was like, ooh, I have a lot of grief for my mom that I've never, ever talked about or processed in any way. And I would just fill that grief hole with achievement and work. But then when dad died, it was like, oh no, I don't, no amount of work can fill these voids in my life.
Yeah.
And then plus the divorce was like, literally, who am I?
Yeah.
And like you, Grieve Leave started as a blog. And
Mm-hmm.
it came from my own like academic learning teacher policy background of being like, why is it so hard to talk about grief in America?
Yeah.
Why is this so hard for me?
Yeah.
What are the policies that make it that way?
Mm-hmm.
What have I learned and internalized about why grief is hard to talk about? What research is there on what grief actually is? What is grieving? And like, how am I supposed to do that? Everyone, like literally, what is
Like,
that?
how do I grieve? But
Literally.
for real, people do that. And I can
Oh,
understand why.
I didn't understand. And
Yeah.
I blogged about that, put that on
Mm-hmm.
social media for both death and non-death related grief because I was very clear that I was the one to end my marriage and I felt an incredible amount of grief about the life that I did not get to have with
Of
him.
course. Yep.
Both are true, right? It can be the right move and you can still grieve
I
it.
was going to ask about that. Yeah. Just if that existed for you, which I had no doubt it.
Totally. My
Yeah.
God, I don't have kids right now. That
Mhm.
is devastating to me, if I'm being totally honest with you. Like, oh my God, I wish, and that comes from like having a dead mom and like wishing I could mother, right? Like it's
Mhm.
all my therapist and I talk about this all the time. But I always imagined that by 35 I would have a couple of kids or be at least trying for a kid. I also imagined I would be running for president, Tara. And then like all,
Manifesting this, please.
all of
For
these
the
things
record, you have my vote.
oh my God,
What
thank
that's
you
worth.
so much. I really appreciate it. But yeah, that blog resonated with people globally,
Yeah.
particularly around the divorce grief side of things.
Yes. Yeah.
And which was really interesting. Also, my grandma died, my last remaining grandparent, in the middle of my year of grief leave. And so I saw another example of like
Oh,
prolonged death and a natural, wonderful age of 98. And it's like, oh, right, this is what
oh,
it's supposed to be. Yeah. Nana, she raised the average age of death in my family. Thank God.
yeah.
Gotta like math that
Somehow.
out. 98. Woo! It's good.
That's amazing.
Um, but that what I learned after taking a year off, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, on grief leave and seeing how that resonated with so many people. So I was like, well, I can combine my background in education as a teacher, this is how I started my career, and my background in policy and government. Think about how we create change on a seismic scale,
Yeah.
and my love of people. And I do still love like how you present yourself externally. Like I like thinking about that and I like
Yeah.
thinking about how to engage people and teach them. So the way to combine all of that is to help people through building a community. And that is what Grieve Leave is now. And it is so much bigger than I ever thought it would be. And I mean, we have also launched a podcast. Like, it is amazing to see communities like yours, communities like mine, grow and connect with people all over the world who might have been thinking, God, I'm the only one who's ever felt this sense of loss. It's like, no, I promise you.
Like, while all of our grief is unique, certainly, I always say there are general themes. There is loneliness, anger, sadness, joy, even guilt, regret, all the things that we can all feel on a like that community level. So even though it is as unique as our fingerprint, our grief, it's there is that beauty in community that I think is so under. But it's so interesting though, because I will say, and I've seen this in my own community too, there are people that go inward and they're like, I don't want to talk to people right now. I don't want the community. There's people in my membership where they're just like, some people are more active in that than others, and that's okay. And sometimes like in my earlier days of grief, I would not have been that open to a community. I was like, I just need to go inward right now. I got to
Dude, me neither. I would have never.
But now I'm just like, it's so magical. Like, look at these types of conversations we can have, and we can, dare I say, even laugh about it. Not about the deaths per se, but just like, wow, look, this life thing, man, this is no joke.
It's pretty wild. But no, I mean, that is at the center of founding Grieve Leave is my own frustration at not finding grief support that I felt was relevant for someone like me who did not want to sit in a circle in the basement of a church on a Tuesday at 4.
Thank
That
you.
is that's not for me. And I tried. That is pretty much the only grief support that is available to people, particularly in the South.
Yeah.
And it devastated me. It made me feel 10 times worse to show up in a space that I then felt like a complete other in.
Right.
And it was awful.
Oh my God, if I didn't feel isolated before, now I really do. Now
like the old ladies at the grief support group are like, oh, hi, are you speaking today to the group? Are you on the staff? And I'm like, nope, ma'am, I'm a griever just like you. Now I feel even worse about myself. Thank you. I'm just gonna leave. Okay, good day to you. And it was shit like that. And I was like, we can do better. We can host grief support events at bars and at exercise classes. We can host things online. We can talk about divorce-related grief. We can talk about ambiguous losses like that are like, well, this person's still alive, but like they're not in my life. Right. And I have a sense of loss about that, whether or not you wanted it to end or not. So Grieve Leave is incredible. I love our community. I love connecting with people like you because it is through like finding your people, like your figures on the internet, your whether you're reaching out to that community or not. Like if you are seeing content that resonates with you, you feel less alone. And I think that's community too. If you're listening to this podcast and never participate in a live grief support event or like write a comment ever, totally fine. You're still a part of a community because you feel seen even through listening, So you're doing incredible work through all of your stuff.
No, it's so true. You do it. That's the big thing. Like that. It's a whole nother episode, really. But like how social media is very interesting. It can feel very isolating. It can actually actively make us feel worse. I have had that happen where if we're feeling like someone has the life that we don't have or no longer do or whatever it is, and it can be very inspiring. Or hopefully people come across content like the ones that we post and we're like, God damn it, I needed this today. Like, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I know for a fact you get comments like that or get messages like that. And they're just like, this came at the perfect time. I had a dream about this the other night as well. Like, thank you for sharing that. Whatever it is. Like, that's, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you can probably relate to this. Like if I even just affect one person a day and they just feel a little bit more seen. And there's just that little spark of joy and that little spark of like, wow, someone actually freaking gets it.
Yes.
That's all I need.
But like, then going back to exactly what we were saying before as to why I feel more normal and why I wonder if you feel just like more like yourself is because like it's not like we haven't been thinking about our grief this whole time,
right. Yeah.
right? Like it's that we're saying the things out loud
Yes.
that maybe we just like didn't say before
Yeah.
because I don't know. I feel like I have nothing left to lose. I feel like I've literally nothing left to lose. I feel like that is the privilege of going through like a front loading my loss at this point in my life is like, I'm like, okay, like I think I'm probably, I mean, who knows what the hell is
I'm
going to
good for
happen,
a while, am I not?
right? I
Like,
have to be, but it's like I can say the things out loud.
yeah.
I have an immense amount of privilege as a white woman in America with financial resources to do the work that I want to do on the timeline that I want to do it on. Holy shit, do I have a lot of privilege? Let me speak up about the hard things
Hmm.
and hope that that helps somebody else because I can. And I'm proud and grateful to be able to do that every day.
Yeah. That's incredible. That touched me.
Oh, you do that shit too. We're speaking up. We're just
I
loud.
know. We did.
I'm
Yeah.
loud for a living.
I'm definitely loud too. It's why I have a freaking podcast of all things. No, and really, and two, I mean, I know you're already feeling this with your podcast, even though it's like on the slightly newer side. Like there is something not only cathartic about writing, but then like being able, like opening that throat chakra and being like, yeah, this is how I feel, or this, asking guests and having conversations just like this and being like, are you feeling this too? How many times today have we been like, yes, like, girl, preach. Like,
This podcast is literally just this episode. It's just us being like, yes, yes,
it's
yes.
just chaos, but it's fine.
No, it's not. It's beautiful,
Organized. Yeah.
and it's so. But that's also what grief is. But it's
Yeah.
literally just like
For true.
there's
I
something
see
about
you. Like,
hearing it out
yeah.
loud that
Yeah.
feels really different, and it feels so intimate, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
it is a privilege to be able to talk with you and like have you see me and me see you.
Yeah.
I'm grateful. And I love so the podcast is called Griefed Up. It
Yeah.
is new. I love that you said it's on the newer side. It is brand spanking new.
It's
I am
like,
so
you got a
proud.
turn, but yeah.
It is so I'm thrilled about it. This is like this is the next step in the Grieve Leave
Iteration
community, the
sort of.
next
Yeah.
iteration.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how we're continuing to grow and connect with people.
Yeah.
And Griefed Up comes out with a new episode every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
We have a mix of interviews with badass, interesting people of who have experienced all different types of losses,
Mm-hmm.
whether that is death or non-death related grief.
Yep.
And we're funny. Like we're it's
Like,
I
dare I
like
say,
to
we're
like
actually hilarious.
dare I say, but like I it is so important to me that it feels like you are talking or you're listening to your friends talk about real shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I want everyone to feel when they
Yeah.
listen to episodes of Griefed Up. And if that is the vibe for you and that is what you are looking for, like come listen. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify. We have some really, really cool interviews coming up too with authors and some athletes. Just
Oh, okay.
gonna
Color me
put that,
intrigued. Like, I'm
put
just
that in.
just leave you with some breadcrumbs to follow.
Man, sports and grief. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to bring it back to Duke sports one more time because I can. And that makes me happy. I am not an athlete, Tara, but I hear
Oh,
that there's
gosh
a lot,
darn it.
there's a lot of grief in sports. We're going
Oh,
to talk about
I
that.
should only begin to imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
On
not an athlete either?
well, I used to do lots of things in high school,
Okay.
but I
Well,
haven't done anything
that
since high school. So
sounds like an athlete to me.
I had my volleyball moment, I had my track and field, and
Yeah.
now they're gone.
Well, I mean, that's amazing.
But it
I
was
did not have that. I played softball kind of as a joke my senior year. I was student government girly and drama.
so come.
It's true.
Oh my God. Okay. So to wrap this up, I always love to ask my guests, like, what is just like one or two little nuggets of advice, tips, words of wisdom, whatever it is. What if somebody is listening to this episode right now and they're just like, okay, y'all are a lot. This was informative, but like, okay, I made it. to the end. Now what?
Oh my God. Wait, literally my advice, my biggest piece of advice, and this is going to be very ironic after an episode like this,
Uh-huh.
is to get quiet. Like, and I so
No,
mean that.
I
It's
back
to
that,
like,
please.
and
No, it's so
it's
true.
so like, I started yoga for the first time in my life after my dad died because my therapist was like, do me a favor and just try it. I think
Do
just
me a
do
solid.
I was like, I
Oh,
almost said her name. Whatever, I'll just say it. Ellen. It's like, Ellen, I don't at all want to do yoga. I never shut the fuck up and I'm not flexible. Why would I do yoga?
it's just not.
Why would I
Math
ever
is
do that?
not mathing here.
And she was like, that's exactly why you should try.
I love that. Thank you, Ellen.
It changed. Thank you, Ellen. It changed my life.
Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
quiet
Hmm.
changed my life. And I'm getting goosebumps literally just talking about it.
Yeah.
I would not consider myself a particularly spiritual person. I would not consider myself a particularly woo-woo person in any way.
Mhm.
Yoga fundamentally changed how I think. It changed how I approach work. It
Mhm.
changed how I approach relationships. And that came from getting quiet first and foremost.
Mhm.
Before any of the moves, I'm so much more flexible than I used to be, but like that is secondary. Like
Yeah,
for
it's the
me,
mindset and breath work and everything. Yeah.
breath,
Hmm.
quiet, hearing your thoughts, but not even getting like boggled down in them, like
Yeah.
recognizing them like a cloud that is
Yes.
passing. Like
Yes.
that changed my life
Yeah.
and made me recognize like, wow, I'm crying in yoga right now. Why
Mhm.
is that happening?
Mhm.
Oh, because when I give myself just some space to breathe,
Yeah.
even if it's for 5 minutes of
5, 10 minutes.
meditation,
Exactly. Yeah.
that created the space that my body and my brain actually needed to grieve.
Yep.
Life changing. That is so. After not shutting the fuck up for an hour plus, my advice and my biggest word of wisdom to anybody out there is to get quiet when you can, even if it is for 5 minutes a day.
I love that. Thank you. I say this a lot now. Witness yourself, witness your grief, give it the time and attention it deserves. We are so often told or conditioned or whatever to like tamp it down. And sometimes we feel like we don't have a choice. We have a family, we might have kids, we might have a job, we have all these responsibilities and things. When do we take the time for us? And we've talked about this today, right? Like it sounds like both of us have, and I also did therapy for a little bit. And it's like, you have to like invest, and it doesn't have to be like monetarily, I mean, but just investing that time in you, in
Yeah.
the silence, and whatever resonates, and getting curious about that. And like maybe you try yoga, or maybe you try something for a little while and you're like, oh, okay, this really is not working for me. But then you go to some other healthy coping tool, or even just
Yep.
walking or something like, okay, this is more my speed. Like,
Yes.
that's fine.
My God,
There's
walking.
never, yeah,
Again, shout out to Ellen. Ellen was like, go for a walk. Do
yeah.
not bring your dogs. Do not put in
Mm,
headphones.
yep,
Go
yep,
for a walk.
yep,
Leave your phone at home or put it on something and
yep,
just go
yeah.
and just be. That
Hmm.
changed my life, right?
Yep.
I was so uncomfortable. And over time,
Yeah.
I I am no longer uncomfortable with
Yeah.
silence. I'm no longer uncomfortable being alone because I am just myself. And just myself is fucking awesome.
Yeah. I love that. It's like such probably a millennial thing to say mic drop, but I'm just gonna say it. Like it's just because it applies here.
Look at
No
us.
better term. Like
Love this for us.
so true. And it's just such a sacred time in our life when we go through something devastating. And whether you're on day one or you're a few years out or whatever, there's no bad time to start. There's no rules, there's no timelines. There's just, it's like I feel like if somebody takes anything away from this episode today, because we've covered a lot, but like it's just like releasing any constraints or stress or whatever. And you've said this so beautifully throughout this episode. It's just like really getting to like hear your own voice again, and you're tapping into your own intuition. Like you leaving that job, you're like, if you had not gotten in touch with yourself the way that you have, or you didn't allow yourself to have those tough thoughts and those painful thoughts and work through that, you might still be in a position that is not good for you. And maybe
Yes.
like I've been in positions where I'm just like, had I stayed where I was, my work for them wouldn't have been good. And that's not
Yes.
a fair exchange of energy either, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, I mean, grief does nothing if not give us a very like twisted and unfair gift of like, I don't want to say blank slate, but just a reset of sorts. And if
Clarifying.
we are willing to take that on, and again, not that it's not uncomfortable, not, and so thank you for saying that too, like not that it doesn't come without pain and discomfort and things like that. I don't think either of us would ever say that it does not come with any and all of those things.
So much pain.
So much
Buku pain.
so
Much pain, much discomfort. Yes.
many pains. But it's a necessary evil. Let's just say, it's a necessary part of the process. So love that word of wisdom as far as just like getting quiet, taking breaths, all the things. And we can be a beautiful dichotomy of both, right? We can be talkers and we can be boisterous, and we can have those quiet, still, sacred moments. And
100%.
both are amazing and both are beautiful and both are needed. Love it. Obsessed.
I'm obsessed with you. It's okay.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for this whole conversation. I feel like there's more to come. I feel like there's others, like more specific topics we need to get into at some point.
You're going to be on the Griefed Up podcast, obviously. So part 2 is coming, everyone. Obviously.
You saw the end of us? We sure did not. We're only getting started. Where can everyone find you? This will all be linked in the show notes, of course, but if people want to connect with you, join your community, listen to the podcast, all the good things, where can people find you?
Tara, thank you so much for having me today. I am just like thrilled. You can find Grieve Leave on every social media platform at Grieve Leave. That is GRIEVELEAVE. Grieve Leave.
There's a big I before E.
Well, because it's not grief leave. Grief leave. Like that's not grief. I can't even say it. Grieve leave is what it is.
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, it doesn't. I can't. On Instagram, Facebook, go to grieveleave.com, join our community there, sign up for our newsletter. Go listen to the Griefed Up podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever, whichever of those 2 platforms you like the best.
Like we don't discriminate.
We don't discriminate. I'm so proud of that podcast, and I am so proud of how we are kicking off these conversations that are this beautiful mix of the pain and the laughter that come with grief.
There's space for
I can't
both.
wait. There's always space for both. So go listen. Can't wait to hear what you think.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here today, for giving us your time and your insights and your energy and all the things. Freaking love you. So excited.
Oh my God, love you.
This episode, and you're just the best. You're so inspiring. So I'm so excited to have this conversation for like literally the longest time. So I'm so
Stop it. Thank you, Tara. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. I'm so grateful you're here and for the steps you are taking to heal your heart, open your mind, fulfill your soul, learn, grow, and evolve, and move through this crazy thing called life in big, beautiful, impactful ways. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, membership, more coping tools, ways to work with me, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Losses Become Gains, and on Instagram and TikTok at Life with Grief Podcast. I love seeing new faces, meeting new people, hearing your stories, and supporting you however I can. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. And remember to always keep asking yourself, how will I turn my losses into gains today? I'll catch you in the next episode.